to take pictures and smile at the gay wedding, or he's breaking the law. That authority is now in contradiction to Christ's authority. And I am one that says Romans 13 teaches us to obey man's laws. I'm there. Except, and this is biblical, when those laws and that man force us to contradict God's law. And then we're like Peter and John. It's better to obey God rather than men. They weren't rebellious. They weren't saying, let's destroy the Roman Empire. Yeah, that's what Jesus wants to do. That's not what they were doing. They wanted to live, as Paul said, peaceably with all men. Live under those governments. The Roman government, you know what? It was corrupt. I mean, Caligula, for crying out loud. The Roman government was corrupt. They were worshiping false gods. Paul never spoke out in rebellion to Roman law. In fact, he used Roman law to get an audience away from the Jews who wanted to rule over him and have him killed. Except when Roman law, American law, Chinese law causes us to contradict God's law. It's like Nebuchadnezzar, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego saying, no, we were with you, king. We were doing whatever you said. Now you tell us to do that. We're not going to do it. You can kill us if you want to, but we're not going to do it. Would that God's people had that resolved. Now we're looking at a situation where these four beasts are working the governments of the world to destroy Bible Christianity. That's who we wrestle against. Look at Psalms chapter 2, verse 2. The kings of the earth set themselves, and the rulers take counsel together against the Lord and against His anointed, saying, let us break their bands asunder, and cast away their cords from us. He that sitteth in the heavens shall laugh. The Lord shall have them in derision. Then shall He speak unto them in His wrath, and vex them in His sore displeasure. Yet have I set my king upon my holy hill of Zion. So we have one king, King Jesus. And we have a day of wrath that's going to come where God's going to depose all of these other kings. And what have they done? The rulers take counsel. The rulers, the principalities. That's what a conspiracy is. It is with the spirits. They are taking the earthly king. This is why the earthly kings went to the Bilderberg meeting. This is why they are part of the Council on Foreign Relations, the Trilateral Commission, the G20 Summit, the Ecumenical Conference. This is why they are a part of that. Because they're not hearing their marching orders from the Bush family. They're being told by very, very dark people who are under the influence of devils, this is what we're going to do, and you're going to go along with it. How else is it that these groups like Bilderberg and all of these groups can have so much power over these people? I mean, my goodness, they control the president. I'm the president of the United States. If I don't want to eat broccoli, I don't have to. He may not eat broccoli. I was talking about George Bush. He may not like this or that. But when it comes to his policy and what he does, he's told what to do. You and I know that. And that, by the way, there is a spirit that rules in the White House. There's a spirit that rules in the congressional offices. You know how I know? Because they built a statue to her right on top of that Capitol dome. And of course, Osiris, Baal, rules over the whole city of Washington, D.C. because his shaft, his obelisk, standing up right there. Oh, makes me sick. Okay? So at some point, the American government is going to turn against the Lord and against His anointed. You mark it down. Look at this. These principalities, they despise the written word of rule or law. They hate it. Mark chapter 4. Remember the four things that the seed is sown on, and the fourth is the only one that brings forth fruit. Think about that. Things of this world? No. The fourth one does. So in Mark chapter 4, hearken. Behold, there went out a sower to sow, and it came to pass, as he sowed, some fell by the wayside, and the fowls of the air came and devoured it up. There's your thing. They have wings, and they fly around in the air. What are they? Spirits. Mark chapter 4, verse 14, the sower soweth the word, and these are they by the wayside, where the word is sown, but when they have heard, Satan cometh immediately and taketh away the word that was sown in their hearts. Okay, so we have 150 years of the formation of America. People coming over with the Word of God. Have you ever heard of the Mayflower Compact? You know what it was? It was a group, before they ever set foot there at Plymouth Rock, they sat down and wrote out a written rule and said that when we step off of this boat, see, as long as they're on the boat, they're under the dominion of the captain. They knew that before they could ever establish any kind of rule or society on land where maritime rule did not exist, they knew that they had to have a written law. And they said, this is for the glory of God, so the Bible's going to be our rule, and when we pass laws and collect ourselves together in a civil politic authority, then the Word of God is going to be our rule of law. It's written down already, the laws of Moses. This is how we're going to do it. And so for 150 years in this country, we had the rule of the written Word of God ruling over the townships and the cities of early America. You ever heard of ye old Satan deluder law? You know what that was? I think it was in Massachusetts, 1600s. You know what they said? Any place in the colony of Massachusetts where more than like 10 families get together and have like a little community, once that happens, it's the law that they must build a schoolhouse and have somebody teach the children how to read and write, because so that they can read the Word of God, so that the old deluder, Satan, does not come in and have dominion over them. That's what they did. That's amazing to me. So for 150 years, the written Word of God and the written constitutions, the written laws, were the rule and authority over America. And then the Illuminati showed up. And they very subtly began to move into the halls of government, move into the White Houses and the Capitol Hills and everything else, to slowly but surely pull the government, the correct government, the rule of written law, away from the American people, to put them under the authority of a new king. That's what's going on in this country. And people are saying, well, America's never been a Christian nation because of Freemasonry. George Washington was Freemason. It was a Christian nation. But any time you have a land where the Word is sown, the devil comes and immediately devours it. That's what's happened in America. The devil right now is devouring the written Word. What is that in America? Our country is ruled over by a written law. In fact, we say we value it so highly that the original document that those men wrote, the Constitution, we the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution of the United States of America. And you're going, Pastor Mac, how did you memorize that? I have the song. You remember the Schoolhouse Rock song? I had that going on in my head while I'm doing it. That's how I learned it. Okay? But anyway, we preserve this document, okay, in the National Archives building, because this document is so essential to the American way of life. And then we have politicians who say, Constitution, Schmonstitution. They are being ruled over by principalities, by devils who hate the Word. And in this case, the Word is the Constitution of our country. I mentioned this earlier, Deuteronomy 17. That's where it is. When thou art come into the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee, and shalt possess it, and shalt dwell therein, and shalt say, I will set a king over me, like as all the nations that are about me. In verse 18 it says, "And it shall be, when he sitteth upon the throne of his kingdom, that he shall write him a copy of this law in a book, out of that which is before the priests, the Levites. And it shall be with him, and he shall read therein all the days of his life, that he may learn to fear the Lord his God, to keep all the words of this law and these statutes, to do them, that his heart be not lifted up above his brethren." Notice this, brethren, they're equals. "That he turn not aside from the commandment to the right hand or to the left, to the end that he may prolong his days in his kingdom, he and his children in the midst of Israel." Did you see you know what the king was supposed to do? He was supposed to write his own copy. Written with ink on paper. You know how they say the pen is mightier than the sword? That is true. The Word of God is not some ethereal spiritual thing that we experience. Oh no. The Word of God is the authoritative ink on paper that you can't change. See, here's what we do. We know that when a story goes from one person to the next, to the next, to the next, about 15 people down the story, we've played that game before. The story's never the same. And yet if I were to write something down, a sentence, and say, read this and pass it down, by the time it gets to the end guy, it is the same sentence. Same one. The rule of written authority, the Word, the Constitution. And God said, because the king should never be lifted up above his brethren, because he's not. He's the same. He's a man. Puts his pants on the same way everybody else does. They're just more expensive pants. He is the same as everybody else. And what I'll do is I will establish written law instead of oral law from a king. So principalities, they want to do away with the written law so they can establish a new law, a new order. Here is the symbol of principalities and how they're working in America. The New World Order. He favors the birth. Annuit coeptus, novus ordo seclorum. The New World Order is an order. Notice the all-seeing eye here. The New World Order is not based upon the old order. The old order is the laws are written down on paper, so that none of our presidents and congressmen. See, the whole point of America was we didn't want a king. We were the nation. We were like the only nation at the time who didn't have a king. We didn't have a sovereign lord reigning over us. We had our equals, our peers, who we elected, who we can unelect if we want to. We can throw them out of office if we want to. They don't have a divine right to be there for life. That's how we started. It was going to be the rule of the written law. But you know as well as I do, these guys get in office and they think they are it. And they think they're above the law. The Constitution then means nothing to them. So much so that now our Supreme Courts in every state of this union are seriously, some already have, considering, let's alter what marriage is. Let's throw out the old order and give birth to a new order without the written word. So their symbol is the all-seeing eye. You've seen this. This is why this is so popular everywhere. It is the symbol of the new order or principalities